and it went through the night and this morning. And as difficult as it was, we always have to, make what we think is the best decision for our team. And we just felt it was the right time to make this move, and got nothing but great things to say about LeSean, and appreciate his time here as a Buffalo Bill even before I got here. And it was tough, but again, we'll wish LeSean the best. He obviously was frustrated, rightfully so, but again, we made the decision that we made, and we're going to move forward. Also, guys, I'm not going to talk about any of our other moves right now. I think talking to Derek, we'll talk tomorrow around 4. So I'll take any questions on LeSean that you have, because I understand it's a big newsmaker. If you guys want to fire away.
Hey, Brandon, John Worrell with the AP. You called it a tough decision. Back at the draft and at the start of training camp, you had, essentially asserted that, LeSean's going to be the guy when Dable and Sean roll the ball out. What, in your mind, changed?
Well, first of all, we believe in LeSean and still believe he can play, but, you can't look at every decision in a vacuum. And, after the draft, you got a guy like Devin Singletary who we were excited about, but some guys transition faster, some guys transition slower, and that's one of the decisions. Who is ready in that running back group to, contribute right away? And we just felt, right now that Devin would be able to help us, along with the other guys that we're keeping. And so that all went into this decision. Again, it was very difficult, but I believed in LeSean the whole time, and again, it was down to the last minute that we decided to go in this direction.
Hey, Brandon, Mike Catalana in Rochester. You said LeSean was frustrated. Was he frustrated just with the move itself, or the timing, or a combination of those things?
I don't know. I'm sure all of it. He put his best foot forward. This whole camp, this whole off season, I thought he handled it well. The added competition. He never said anything negative to me. So that's all I'm going to go off of. But it was a competition. We made that clear with everyone, and I believe in all our guys. You ask me about any guy that's on our roster when we have 91, when we have 53. I believe in them. They're here for a reason, and sometimes it comes to where you have competition, and a good player has to go. And we said it all along. There were going to be some tough decisions, and it doesn't get much tougher than cutting a guy with this guy's production.
Brandon, it's Chase Gursky with the Buffalo News.
From Devin Singletary that made you think that, he is ready, immediately as a rookie to step in and, maybe, carry the load for this team?
We felt he's shown enough in practice and in games, and some of it is physical. I think that was you, Josh, that was asking the question, but some of it's mental too. Where are the guys? We have some guys that are young players or new players learning our system on any side of the ball, and so we just felt right now that we could get contributions from Devin. That'll be up to Brian, how he and Kelly Skipper use him, but we felt that he's ready to roll in some form or fashion for our team, and that went into the decision because, again, when we drafted him, you got to get him in here and see how well he picks up his role, and he is being asked to do some different things. They didn't throw him the ball a lot in Florida Atlantic, so again, he had to prove himself, and as much as you can. Now, we haven't played live games yet. That's a different test. It's a different speed coming up. And we've tried to warn all our rookies that the preseason has its own speed, and it'll pick up, as we go into week 1 in the Jets. So, again, Devin's an unproven player, in a regular season game, but we felt he had done enough and answered enough questions for us to make this decision happen.
Hey, Brandon, it's Chase Gursky with the Buffalo News.
With Panel 2, how close were you guys to trading McCoy and trying to get something back for him?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you're going to release a player, not just LeSean, but some of the other guys that we've already released, guys that have skins on the wall like him, you definitely check around. And we did our due diligence. I'm not going to go into where and how and who, all that, but just as we've looked around for players, and that's what happened now. So, yes, we did look around to see if there was a right fit, but we did not find that, and so and that was in the very last, I'm going to call it the 23rd hour, so to speak, because this decision really came down all the way to this morning. So, Jay, I know you've tried to ask. Jump in.
Yeah, I was just going to part of that was, whether you had considered that option, and then the other part of it is, did you ask LeSean to take a pay cut at all?
I don't really want to get into it, what we did, but no, we did check around, and with some teams, and again, this gives him a chance to kind of choose his destination as well, which I think he's earned that right as well.
Brandon, Sal Capaccio, WGR. I know you spoke about Devin and what you've seen from him, but what about Frank and what you've seen from him going all the way back to when you signed into your comfortability about this?
Yeah, I mean, Frank's been he's done everything asked of him, and he's a pro's pro. Really good with the young guys, and he's a vet. He showed us, again, we didn't want to overdo his carries. We didn't want to overdo him or LeSean's carries in the preseason, but we want to get him enough to get the feel of our linemen that were out there in the particular games they played, and obviously this is his first year in this offense. We feel he understands his role, and he'll jump in there, and if we want him to start, he'll start. If we want him to back up, he'll back up. I think Frank's ready to help in whatever role Brian Daboll has planned for him.
Hey, Brandon, that's all I said. Just piggybacking off what you said earlier about Devin. Was there anything in particular that you needed to see from Devin in training camp in the preseason that maybe you didn't know about him to make this decision?
I think the passing game was probably the thing that was a little bit of an unknown. We did work him out private, and we did throw some balls to him, but, private when nobody's about to hit you, or, different routes maybe than he's asked to do here. He's also, it's a work in progress. He wasn't asked to do a lot of pass pro, seeing it. I'm not going to say he's perfect in either, but he's shown the ability to do it. Now, it's not going to be perfect every time, but we believe he's got what it takes. He understands protections. The first thing to do pass pro is to understand, protections and where things are coming, where the free man's coming that he's got to pick up. And he seems to have a good grasp of that mentally. The next part is his technique. I thought early in camp he was inconsistent with his technique. I think he's improved it, and I think he'll continue. So we'll continue to work on it. But he showed enough to be in there on what I would say any of the three downs.
Brandon, it's Laurel again. How I don't want to say how much, well, maybe how much easier was it, or how much did you factor in the fact that, LeSean, even though there was other issues with the line, is coming off his least productive season, and he's 31?
I didn't factor that in. I mean, Frank's 36. And last year, I don't fault LeSean. I think our offense just never got in a rhythm for a lot of reasons. And you can put, some of that on me, probably a lot of it. We weren't good enough up front, and I think it kind of snowballed from there, hence the moves that we did this offseason. So I really thought LeSean earned the right to come back in here and compete, and I appreciate, what he did, up until today. And I got nothing but positive things to say about LeSean McCoy.
Brandon, George from Challenger Community News. Just wondering, was there serious consideration at the trade deadline last October and also during the offseason leading up to the draft of seriously trading him trading LeSean McCoy at that time?
No, there wasn't really, go back to last year, I'll answer that part of the question first. There was some calls and things, but nothing was ever serious, and honestly, you don't want to just give away a good player, and you got to look at where we were a year ago to what we would have gotten in return potentially, and there was never without going deep into it, there was never a hard offer or anything like that. People, a couple of calls coming in. Sometimes people are sniffing to see what you're going to do. But at the time, if you look at who's in our backfield now, none of those guys were really here much. And so things change with free agency and then the draft. We also had to protect ourselves, in case, because again, I want to go into the draft being able to freely draft the best players. And I didn't want to go into free agency with a major hole there because I knew we had holes, in our line that we wanted to attack and also at the receiver position. And then there's been no talk with anybody since a couple of calls last year right at the deadline. So there was nothing this spring, or through the summer until, we did make some calls here at the 23rd hour.
Okay.
Hey, Brandon, Thad Brown in Rochester. How much of this decision, as much as you talked about building a long-term winner in Buffalo, is about the idea that having a pair of 30-year-old running backs being maybe the lead guys on your team isn't maybe fit with that vision?
I don't get caught up into that. I know 30 is that number, especially for running backs, that people, especially in the analytic world, throw up a firestorm about. But I just try to grade the players. And, it's not like I was, extending a guy that's 30-something years old to a 3 or 4 year deal. These guys were, talking about him and Frank, were both on 1 year deals, and I think they both, have 1 year. You take it 1 year at a time when you're on a 1 year deal. So there was, there was every bit of chance that we kept both those guys. I wasn't going in saying, it was never where I was going in saying that we're only going to keep one of the 30-year-old backs. There was a lot of scenarios where we kept them both. And again, that's what made it so difficult.
Brandon, Matt Perino from New York Upstate. Quick question on, the locker room. Obviously, LeSean is one of the more respected and well-liked guys in the room. Was there any concern that this could have a negative impact in there?
Listen, anytime you make a move like this, LeSean is a big name, not only in Buffalo but across the league. But there's young guys in this locker room that probably played with him in Madden and looked up to him, and so that's hard. And for young guys, I'm sure this is sometimes maybe it's the first time they realize there are tough decisions in this business. And but no, we'll rally, we'll move on, and that's part of it. This is not the first tough decision the Buffalo Bills have had to make, and I'm sure there will be plenty more. They're not easy, but the thing that the Bagulas have asked me and Sean to do is to always make the best decision for the Buffalo Bills, and that's every move we're making. And listen, some of them work out great, and some of them don't, and we'll see on this one.
Brandon with the Batavia Daily News. When you drafted Devin, did you ever see him rising to this level so quickly?
Well, I don't want to put him on a pedestal, but I think he's done a very good job. He's answered the questions that we've had so far. Again, a guy that hasn't played a regular season game, I don't want to, put him in Canton yet. But what I would say is he's a hard worker. He's very humble. I appreciate the way he approaches the game. He really leans on the veterans, whether it's Frank. I'm sure he asks LeSean questions, whoever. Pat DeMarco's in that room. I really like how he's come in and who he is. You only get to know these guys so much before you put your name on him and draft him. And he's been, such a great young man to work with, and we're excited with where he's heading. But he'll have a lot to prove as a rookie this year.
Brandon, Joe Biscaglia from The Athletic here. Just curious with Devin, when was the first time, if you think back, that he really stood out like a sore thumb and you thought to yourself and talked with your guys like, all right, this guy might be ahead?
I think just it wasn't one thing, Joe. Honestly, it's just been the whole thing. Like, as I talked about, we knew he could run with the ball in his hands. I talked about his vision and his instincts and his feel. I think when he checked the box on the passing game, again, he wasn't thrown to a lot in that offense, in college. And so just seeing his natural feel, like you can send guys out for a pass and they can run out there, but there's a feel in zones where to find the holes. There's a feel out there of, just natural hands catching the ball. And then obviously the part I talked about a minute ago was the pass pro. You can be a third down back all you want, but if all you can do is catch it, people are going to blitz you and make you keep that guy in. And so to be a true third down back, the guy's got to be able to catch it and, pass pro and obviously run the routes.
Brandon, it's Fairburn. I'm curious how much you factored in, how LeSean might respond to a reduced workload when you made this decision, just given, how many guys are in that backfield and the role that he's used to having.
Yeah, Matt, that's a good question. I think that definitely, is part of it. You do weigh that. Again, it was a lot of things we weighed, a lot of factors. But yeah, we did see this being a running back by committee, whatever group that we kept, and that would be a different role for LeSean. But it's nothing that we approached him with. Hey, we're going to cut your carries down or anything like that. But I think that would have been the role, and it is something that you have to consider when you're kind of maybe lessening a guy what he's a bell cow back for his whole career pretty much. So it definitely went into the thought, but there was a lot of things that went into it, Matt. But that's a great question. That was one that we definitely talked about.
Hey, Brandon, Sal Marijuana. I got nothing to ask.
All right,
Everything's been asked, so I just want to say hi.
Well, hit him straight, buddy.
I will.
All right. Thank you all. I'll see you tomorrow at 4.